I'm sure many of you have already downloaded it and had a look at it. And we've certainly been poring over it in some detail. And you may already have seen the press release that we sent out pretty much as soon as it was published. And the next couple of slides are the headlines essentially from the press release and represent our sort of initial view of a first read of the document. And we're now going to drill down in a lot more detail into the individual areas and produce a full report in response to this. So let's click to the next slide and just give the sort of headlines. Bill, if you just give us the next slide. Right, so plus points. It does acknowledge the climate emergency. That was obviously voted on by Wiltshire Council back in February 2019. We've had sort of sometimes our doubts as whether there's to continue to acknowledge it, but that is acknowledged within the document in the initial statement by Richard Kluwer. He does state this ambition, he calls it, to achieve carbon neutrality for Wiltshire by 2030 as a county, not just as a council. And he says we need to put actions in place now, which is very much the sort of mood music that you hear from Boris Johnson and everyone like that. It also states in each of the key, what they call theme areas like transport and energy and like that, some sensible objectives of things that, you know, if they were achieved, would make a significant difference to the carbon footprint. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, that's about as far as it goes. And what we were all rather taken aback by is the complete lack of any specific material commitment to action at all, which rather contradicts what has just been said in terms of the forward there, which says we need to put actions in place now. This is an emergency. They even quote the Tyndale Centre statistics that say we've got 7 years left of carbon budget for Wiltshire. So in other words, if we don't act to reduce that now, we're going to have to sort of cut off all energy use in 2029. So there's a very inherent contradiction within this document. The complete lack of specific commitments, timescale, no sense of urgency, and no meaningful commitments to action. So the actions that they actually quote in here are really just trivial. So like take for instance the area of energy, which is my sort of the topic group that I'm responsible for. So, you know, there's lovely stuff about reducing energy use to allow for decarbonisation and so on in terms of objectives. One key action they're saying is urgent is promote the benefits of green energy tariffs to residents. I mean, you know, and raise awareness. There's nothing about, no commitment, for instance, to renewable energy generation on council buildings, or indeed setting a planning framework that encourages renewable energy, including wind power, which they would be able to do in the local plan. So that's an example of just the complete lack of urgency. Now, what they say is, they say they've deliberately designed this document to keep it sort of high level and readable and to a general readership. Well, what this means is they're saying all the detail of the plans to deliver these objectives won't actually be completed until 2022-23. And crucially, these are after the next update to the local plan and the local transport plan. Now, the local plan and the local transport plan are crucial statutory instruments that will directly affect planning policy. So the local plan is where they could put in a requirement for all new build of any sort, any housing, to be zero carbon, but they've not committed to that in this document. They could put in it a positive planning environment for wind power, which would override the localism bill, which effectively banned that. Again, they haven't made that commitment. And this is this last point. It says the strategy will influence these things like the local plan, but there's no commitment that there will be those plans will be obliged to deliver the strategy. And if you look at the timing that they've specified for the delivery of the action plans from the strategy, those are, I would say, deliberately timed after those reviews. So we're seriously concerned that, as I think someone put in the chat, this is kicking the can down the road again. 2.5 years after they declared a climate emergency, and potentially another 2 years before any action plans are delivered, let alone actually delivered. Let's just go on to the next page, Bill, if you wouldn't mind. So going down into a bit more detail. So one of the actions from the initial vote in April 2019 was to set up this climate emergency task group. That task group came up with some very specific recommendations, actionable, deliverable recommendations, end of last year, early this year. They're not mentioned at all in there. As I said, complete lack of measurable objectives, milestones, investments, no commitment at all to making policy changes, which is one of the crucial things that Wiltshire Council would be able to make a big difference to carbon footprint by changing things like planning policy and so on. Lots of talk about active travel, cycling, walking, but absolutely nothing concrete in terms of that. Similarly with transport, like zero emission taxis, they could change the licensing methodology for taxis, which would make them zero emission. No mention about renewable energies in Wiltshire's own estate. And as I say, this dependency on other plans and strategies like the local plan, and no requirement for those things to reflect the strategy. So it's really, it's not moving us forward in any concrete way at all. So that was our initial take, and with what we're now developing is a much more detailed analysis of that. So it's very easy to be critical, and we should be critical because I think it deserves to be criticised. But what we're going to try and do, and this is where we need help from members as well, is put meaningful recommendations for what actions should be taken, and hope that they take notice of that. And obviously, one of the crucial ones that I've talked about already is getting the right planning policies in place through things like the local plan and the local transport plan as well. Bill, next slide, please, if you wouldn't mind. So the time frame of where we are now. So the consultation was launched last week. There's a webinar tomorrow at 6 p.m. where the council officers, Ariane Crampton and so on, will be presenting the strategy. A lot of us have registered for that. I don't think anyone's actually had the link through yet, so hopefully those will be issued tomorrow. They're then doing 2 more webinars on the 15th and the 30th. They're sort of either or type. You can either do the first one or the second or third one. The members' planning meeting is today. On the 6th of October, so our meeting next month, we'll also be talking about the strategy. But the good thing there is that we've got Nick Botterill, who is, I'm sure you know, is the Wiltshire Council cabinet member for climate change, and Ariane Crampton, who is the climate change officer for Wiltshire Council. So they have agreed to attend this meeting, and that's where we're going to be feeding back in detail our report on the strategy. The consultation closes on the 17th, and then there's a full council meeting on the 19th, which is not directly part of the consultation, but you'll see why I've mentioned that in a moment. So that's just so everyone got the time frame. We've basically got about 6 weeks to respond to this. Next slide, please, Bill. So what are we trying to do here? Our aim is to force the council to develop a meaningful and timely strategy as a result of massive public pressure. And we'll do this through the authoritative response from WCA, which I've just been talking about, both in the press releases, continual social media pressure, and ultimately our full report. But the really crucial one is the next one: massive community response for consultation. And the role of WCA there is mobilizing our members, in other words, all of you who are involved in here, our local groups, our area board contacts, through our own town and parish council contacts, other community groups, opinion formers. Basically, it needs everybody to go away from this meeting to say to whoever you feel you can influence, you must respond to this consultation. This is absolutely critical, and we will help you, we'll come on to in a second, a toolkit of how to respond to that. Just to give this a bit of context, we helped with the, we did a very similar thing around the local plan review and the future Chippenham review back in the springtime. And that actually did make a difference. It was noted in the Wiltshire Council's commentary that they had a massive response around environmental and climate change concerns. Now, whether they did anything about it or not is a different question, but at least they noted it. So that's our aim here, is for a huge response saying this is not good enough, you need to act now on climate change. The other one is direct contact with Wiltshire councillors. So if you have contact through your area boards or just even through your own councillor, write to them and say, look, this isn't good enough. You know, when it comes to a vote on this in council, you need to say, this is just not good enough. We need action now. And particularly through things like the local plan, as I mentioned. So that's what we're planning to do. Bill, next slide, please. So this is our plan. So we've done our immediate quick reaction press release, social media. We're now talking about point of view at the meeting. Now, things we're planning to do. First one is, we think it may be a good idea to launch a petition. So there's an e-petition facility on the Wiltshire Council website. And if you get 5,000 signatures, then that item, the petition has to be discussed at a full council meeting. Now, 5,000 might sound like a lot, but actually, if you think, you know, there's 40 of us here, if each of us got 125 signatures to the petition, that would make the 5,000. Or we've got, you know, 30 member groups, that would be if each member group got 167 signatures, that would make it. So, and we're going to put this to a vote in a moment. We're going to ask you as members, do you think we should arrange this petition? And the flip side of asking you is, if you do think we should, can you commit to getting as many signatures as possible through your own network? The toolkit, I'll come on to in a minute. That's basically what I was just saying in terms of information available on our website to help you respond to the consultation. We've got a working group to develop this, the report that I talked about, and we'll use our topic groups and other experts, including people on the call tonight, to look at individual themes like energy and transport and so on to feed into that report. We're doing continuous stuff on social media, and there'll be other press releases and so on. And we're going to be contacting opinion formers and obviously encouraging all our members to do the same thing. Write to your MPs, write to your local councillors, anyone else you think is influential, and ask them what they think about this. We're aiming to publish the full report no later than the end of September, earlier if we can finish it. The next thing we wanted to ask our members is about a demonstration at that full council meeting on the 19th. Now, WCA did a demonstration, well, it was pre-WCA actually, but it was a lot of the people involved in WCA outside the county hall on the February 2019 vote, and then we had a subsequent one on the anniversary. And it was, I think the first one was very influential in changing councillors' minds around the vote. So would you be interested in coming to a physical demonstration outside of County Hall on the Tuesday the 19th? And if so, and so we'll ask you to vote on this in a moment. And if so, would you be prepared to work with your own local groups to encourage people to come along to that demonstration? So we'll come to those two votes in a moment. Next slide, Bill. So this is what we're planning to put on a sort of dedicated page on our website. So the press release, which and other press releases there, guidance on how to respond formally, and basically there is there's a survey form on the Wiltshire Council website, which asks you to state whether you agree or disagree with the objectives that are set out in the strategy, and then it's got basically a 200-word free text box to say what you'd like to see more of and what you'd like to see less of. So it's not a very good way of responding to the strategy, but what we excuse me, need to encourage people to do is to, in those comment boxes in particular, because no one would disagree with the objectives if they understand climate change. But the crucial thing is in those text boxes to send a really strong message about this is just not good enough, we need action now. With some suggestions around how to encourage local communities. So for instance, I'm in my parish council, I'm holding a meeting. We've got Nick Bottrell, who happens to be our councillor, coming along, and I'm going to sort of basically publicly debate with him. We're in our area board in Corsham. We're going to have the same thing. We're going to have a public debate to encourage people to take part. And through my local group Transcoco, we're going to mail shot everyone, encourage them to respond to the consultation and so on. And hopefully everyone, all of our member groups will do similar sorts of things to whatever extent they're able to do so, because that's the way you get this mass participation. And we've got Big Green Week coming up at the end of September. I know a number of member groups are doing things for Big Green Week. That's a perfect opportunity to promote the need to respond to this strategy. If we do the petition, we will obviously put that up on the website, the link, and share that with members with some thoughts on how to maximize it. And then if we agree on the demonstration, obviously we'll put all the information there on the website. Okay, I think that's probably it, Bill. Oh, no, there's one more, isn't there? Yeah, next one. Yeah, so how initial guidance on responding, which obviously we will develop in more detail. We need to be positive. We need to give credit where it's due. So I think the first thing is be positive about the strategy aims. You know, they are talking a good game in terms of urgency, action, climate emergency, zero carbon or net zero by 2030. And I think we should say, and setting out some very good objectives, we should all say, yes, absolutely, those are the right things to do. The comment section is where we go in very hard in terms of lack of commitment, lack of time scale, and some concrete suggestions, like, for instance, stopping major developments like roads and stuff like that until they've sorted out the carbon impact of those. Because at the moment, we're going backwards in terms of carbon footprint in Wiltshire with all these new roads and housing developments and so on. And this commitment for the council to actually engage properly on carbon reduction. So that, but we'll put more detail on that and share that with you, but I'm sure you've all got your own thoughts on that. So I think we're now going to move to break. Should we have the votes first?
Let's do the votes.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
can I just add one minute on all of this? I think the message I'm getting back informally from the council is council officers, not councillors particularly, is that what they need is our help. They have put the strongest gentle case, I'll call it that, they can out to the public, relying upon the public to respond positively. And that's item 1 on Adam's slide there. And I think it's hugely, hugely important that we don't, I'm trying to think of the right words, but we don't want to discredit the very good work the council team have done already in identifying all of the things, and this includes the task group, which was 7 councillors plus officers, all of the good things they've identified that we need to do. What they need our help with is to make the county shout loud enough to say, these are the things we need to do, get on with it.
Yes.
And I think that's the real, somehow we've got to get that message over without destroying all the really good work that's already been done, because go back to step 1 again would be disastrous in the extreme. And I'll say now that in 2010 they had a climate response document in 2010, and then they ripped it up in 2015, and we've had to start again. And the last thing we want is to start that whole process again. So when you go out and talk to your groups and everyone else, we want a very positive message out there that this is the right direction. You just got to work a bloody sight harder with it and throw some money in. Yeah. And that's a challenge for the council, remember, because they haven't got any money, and obviously they're burnt a lot through COVID and everything else. And so The challenge is then working out, again, back to my earlier discussion about projects groups, how do you get funding to deliver all of these things is another issue, but they've got to start grasping the nettle of having to deal with it rather than pushing the can down the road, as we say.
Yeah.
So be positive, be productive, but tell them they've got to get on with it. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, can I just pick up a few things in the comments? I'll just quickly just flick through those. So thank you, to all those who have commented. I think, Jeremy's comment that there are some positives and some negatives. I think Bill's just echoing that, and we should definitely, absolutely support the positives. It is actually quite, a good read. It's just completely lacking, as we've said, in those. Andrew's also put the link to the 2010 strategy there, which is a useful one to look at. And Andrew's also reiterated that there's, in parallel with this, there's this called Wiltshire Green-Blue Infrastructure Strategy, which is also on the consultation, which I have to say I haven't focused on very much yet, but it is probably a better document focused on around Wiltshire's natural capital and has a similar response mechanism to it. The petition, basically it'll be an e-petition, so there'll be a link that people can click on and just, like 38 degrees and that sort of stuff. So if we put that out and everyone's got the link, you can just send that to as many people as you possibly have a contact for in Wiltshire, of course.
Well, Adam,
yeah,
ready for the first motion to be voted on.
Yeah.
Is that? Do you want to tell us exactly what the first motion is? Is that for the petition?
Yeah. So the first thing, if you don't mind using your voting button, just say, do you think we should launch a Wiltshire Council e-petition, basically saying they should come up with a proper strategy that has proper deliverables and that directs the local plan and the local transport plan to introduce the right policies.
Okay.
Not wait until 2023 before they do anything.
Okay, I'm going to launch that poll. Hang on, Bill. I can't do it at the same time. Hang on.
These are some draft wording that we've been putting together. Have a quick look at that. Bill, we can't hear you.
And it's
this is a draft we're working on at the moment. And we're clearly going to have to do some more work on it, but that's a sort of gives you an impression of what we're trying to say to them. Now, whether it looks like that in the end, those are the sentiments in it that we're trying to get to them. Okay, so you can see we're working on it, but we need some more time. But what we'd like is a confirmation that you think it's a good idea, as Adam's saying. So I'll stop sharing now and give you back your screen.
And then I'll launch the poll. So when everybody's ready. And then I'll launch the poll and just say yes if you think we should be doing a petition, no if you don't think so. So here we go, launch. So hopefully you've got that. So I'm going to end the poll now. So it seems to be overwhelmingly in support. So 33 or 85%, maybe 34 instead with Eleanor. So that's kind of pretty resounding response.
And thank you for the comments. I think absolutely it needs to be simple. Much simpler than that, but we're just trying to get the thoughts and then condense it down. And partnering with other groups is exactly what we should be doing. Definitely getting that link out to like Wiltshire Wildlife and so on. So
now there was going to be another poll. I think that was for whether we should hold a demonstration on the 19th of October outside County Hall in a similar way that we've done on 2 separate occasions. Is that it?
I just add, and I think that would wrap in to maybe going and making statements and asking questions in the meeting as well. So
yeah,
but we can talk about that in the detail.
Okay. So I'm going to relaunch the question, and I'll end that poll now, and I'll share that with you. So you'll see that 86% of people agreed with the idea of having a petition, a demonstration, and 5 against. That leaves about six people or so did abstained. I think we'll put it as that. Okay, thank you.
That's great. So we'll definitely go ahead with those 2. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
We're coming to breakouts in a second to discuss this in more detail. One of the key things we need to ask in the breakouts is for volunteers to help, in particular with the demonstration, people with experience of organising demonstrations, which I know there are many people, because we have done that before. We would really value people to help with that. So, Bill, back to you, and breakouts, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I mean, what we've talked about so far should set the scene for a lot of thought. I think it comes back to feedback on whether you think we're going in the right direction, this breakout session, and whether there's more things we should be looking at, particularly. The question about whether we want to put more into the toolkit, do you need more or less help, is a good point to think about. And then the detailed response development. I think at the moment we're running in a small team, but we might need some expert help in certain areas. One particular section, which sorry, my fault, didn't put a big banner up about, was what Adam mentioned later. The green-blue infrastructure consultation is a considerable document. It's 44 pages plus a 14-page executive summary. And it is not one where you just tick a box and say, yes, I agree with this. We've got to put a full and detailed response into that document. And I'll be looking to some help there, particularly on the detailed response side, to look at the GBI, the consultation documentation. So anybody who is particularly au fait with that type of issue, environment-wise, please give us your name through these chats, and we can actually form a small group who will look at that particular area in detail, because it needs a good run through. Okay, so that's it. And then community engagement. Yes, we want to talk about that, and we want to talk to you guys, and you tell us how you see engaging with your community. Council engagement, again, same sort of thing, and media management. How are we going to manage the media? Because that is an big issue for us. And again, if there's anybody can help us in the media side, please shout. On the petition, we've already talked about it, and maybe not more to be said about that. And then on the demonstration side, we need a small group, again, of volunteers. And can you think about in your breakout group whether you'd be prepared to come along and help? And this demonstration is not something where we're gluing ourselves onto the doors, okay? It's not that type of demonstration. It's a demonstration of goodwill to support, get back to my earlier point, the process that the climate team have gone through, but to demand more. And I think that's the key issue for us, and demand it in a timely manner. So that's why the demonstration's about. Okay, so feedback from that through our breakout groups would be great. Andrew wants to say something.
Yeah, just a quick plug for the green-blue infrastructure strategy. It's 44 pages, not as long as it sounds, because it's profusely illustrated, not hard to understand. I too haven't read it all, but it's important. And one thing is, there's a risk that by saying, oh yes, we've got a strong network of green and blue corridors, greens means land and blue means water, it could let them allow developers to get away with a lot, because if it isn't in the green and blue corridors, then it may be fair game. Same like they have a bat ecology mitigation strategy. It lets developers get away with things because supposedly bats are taken care of. So and there is a detailed GBI map for most of the towns in Wiltshire as well that goes with it. Strongly recommend going through it, especially for a member of a nature or biodiversity oriented group, or if that's your bag. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I just say something? When I was reading through the executive summary of the blue-green towards a blue-green infrastructure, it said that biodiversity loss has been reversed. I just thought that was interesting.
Okay.
And if they can get away with that, I don't know what else they can get away with.
Love it. Thank you.
And you're part of our team of GBI then, I hope.
What rubbish. God.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
I'll go to the breakout rooms then in that case.